Oh, we have special guests with us. Gordon Magill is here. He's a trucker, writer, commentator who leverages over 25 years of experience across 4 different countries in his examination of the industry. His writing has appeared in Newsweek, the American Conservative, American Affairs Journal, and many other publications, as well as his own Substack. Please welcome to the show, Gordon Magill.
Mr. Dore, thank you so much for having me, sir. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you coming on. I want to get people up to speed on what we're dealing with here now. I just want to remind people that you have the prettiest fascist leader in the world.
He's got very nice hair and very pretty socks, doesn't he?
Yeah, I like him in the darker Trudeau color. He comes in a variety.
He comes in a variety of faces.
I like a caramel Trudeau myself.
Right now, he looks like his father could be Fidel Castro with that skin tone. But here we go. I want to remind people the kind of stuff that was happening around the trucker protest that stood up against authoritarianism. What the truckers were fighting against wasn't medicine. The truckers were fighting against bullshit authoritarianism, and it turns out they were right. And we're going to show you that they actually just got a legal ruling that said they were right. So first of all, I wanted to play this for you.
Is there a reason that you can give as for why you will not discuss or have any negotiations with this particular group?
So he wouldn't even talk to the truckers, wouldn't negotiate with them, wouldn't hear what their concerns were, nothing. But listen to his answer of why he wouldn't do that.
I have attended protests and rallies in the past when I agreed with the goals, when I supported the people expressing their concerns and their issues. Black Lives Matter is an excellent example of that. But I have
So if I agree with the protesters and they like me, then I'll go and meet with them. But if I don't agree with the people protesting my government, no, I have to agree with their concerns. That's not what a leader is supposed to do. So here we go.
So chosen to not go anywhere near protests that have expressed hateful rhetoric, violence towards fellow citizens, and a disrespect, not just of science, but of the frontline health workers and, quite frankly, the 90% of truckers who have been doing the right thing to keep Canadians safe, to put food on our tables. Canadians know where I stand. This is a moment for responsible leaders to think carefully about where they stand and who they stand with.
So pretty safe going to a Black Lives Matter rally in Canada, eh? Just like going to a Men Who Went to See Barbie Alone meeting. Just me. So Gord, you better be careful which movement you align yourself with in Canada these days. Did you ever think that you would live to see the day where Canada became the Handmaid's Tale, but in reverse? Trudeau is just a prettier Hitler. He's like a Pritler. That's what I call him for short. And
he exists in multiple Pornhub categories. Like any particular fetish you could ever want, he's in all of them.
So let me just play this next. Now, they went and arrested 4 trucker protesters. And I got this video from the Tucker Carlson covered this. Well, here's a video that the local news in Canada, this is how they covered it. And I want you to listen to this news coverage and you tell me if any part of this you think is true. Okay, here we go.
According to newly unsealed court documents, RCMP believe 4 men accused of plotting to kill Mounties at the Coots border blockade.
First of all, why do they keep calling them Mounties, right? Most of them are in cars. I guess you can't call them drivies. Anyway. Here we go.
Being given orders by an outside leadership group.
Here, let's start from the beginning.
According to newly unsealed court documents, RCMP believe 4 men accused of plotting to kill Mounties at the Coots border blockade were being given orders by an outside leadership group.
Ooh. They never say what group. I've never heard. Gord, have you heard what outside group they claim has been giving orders?
Well, yes, I have heard about it, and it's very interesting. Some of the evidence they use now. To get back to this particular media reel you have, there was a publication ban on reporting information to obtain documentation that the RCMP and the Crown used to obtain their warrants, which they used to raid the encampment. And a bunch of this stuff that they're reporting is actually subject to that publication ban. But like the CBC and CTV and all the mainstream media have never been charged, and they've never been told to take down this stuff, which is actually subject to the publication ban, which then the media used to hide behind to not talk about the case at all after the ban came down. So there's like a ton of hypocrisy here. But as far as the like this dude, this outside group, it was a guy with a Telegram channel who has never been arrested, never been charged. The cops know who he is, but nothing has ever come of it. It just poof, disappeared. They used it to scare you, but then this outside group has just kind of like faded off into the ether like it never existed.
So it seems like it was invented by the authorities to scare you. Okay, so there's more to this report. Let's listen.
The names of the people in that group have been redacted from the report as they are part of an active investigation. The newly released records involve transcriptions of phone calls between the four charged with conspiracy to commit murder: Anthony Olenek, Chris Lysak, Jerry Morin, and Chris Carbert, and the unidentified leadership group. The documents state the leadership wanted more than just vaccine mandates lifted, but also the elimination of the professional political class. It also alleges Olenek, Lysak, Morin, and Carbert trained for months and stockpiled firearms at Olenek's property near Claresholm while taking orders from an unidentified group. The documents reveal in February, Mounties seized more than 36,000 rounds of ammunition, 2 pipe bombs, gas masks, camouflage, and tactical gear from the property. Other intercepted calls from the four men's cell phones refer to more potential weapons coming from a second stockpile in Nanton, as well as a growing tension between those protesting in Coutts and the leadership group. In February, Olenek, Lysak, Morin, Carbert, and 9 others were arrested after RCMP uncovered a cache of weapons in Coutts. Olenek is also charged with making and possessing an explosive device, and Lysak faces a charge of uttering threat.
A leadership group.
That sounds like such garbage that was written exactly by the authorities that want to imprison and stop the truckers. That doesn't sound like a news report to me. Pipe bomb.
No, what they were doing is trying to scare people, and this is why the judge who issued the original publication ban issued it, because a bunch of it is unsubstantiated allegations. And again, the RCMP was trying to concoct a fantasy against these guys. And one of the central themes to this story that they're not telling you about is that the Freedom Convoy had several locations. There was Ottawa, there was the Windsor Ambassador Bridge to Detroit, Coutts, Emerson, Manitoba. There was another one or two in BC, all across the country. And at all of those protest sites, there was not one lick of violence. The inquest into this, the Public Order Emergency Commission, proved without a doubt that everything the media said about the Freedom Convoy was a lie. There was zero evidence of any violence anywhere. And what they had were these allegations against these guys in Alberta, which turned out to be a whole lot of hokum. How interesting that the inquest into the invocation of the Emergencies Act was held in October of 2022, and the pre-trial hearings against these 4 guys did not start until after that hearing, right? Nothing. And so did you hear, Jimmy, a few weeks ago, 2 of these 4 men were let out of jail.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Right. So they started out being the Coutts 4. 2 of them, Jerry Morin and Chris Lysak, were offered plea deals. Those plea deals were on minor charges that were not part of the original group of charges that were laid against them. So this whole conspiracy to commit murder was dropped. Mischief dropped. Gun charges dropped. They just dropped everything against 2 of these guys completely, which tells you that there's nothing.
So they had those 4 guys in jail for 2 years, correct, Gord?
2 years, and they were denied bail twice. And all 4 of these guys, upstanding citizens with no criminal records. One of them had a charge for possessing 2 hits of ecstasy, which may have happened when he was a minor, but no violence, no criminal history, nothing. Denied bail. In 2018, the Trudeau government passed legislation that increased bail. So basically, if you've actually killed somebody, you're out on bail. Repeat sexual offender, out on bail. Doing things to kids, out on bail. The Canadian prison system is so backed up with people, and the judicial system is so backed up with cases that they're just letting all kinds of criminals loose on the streets. But these 4 guys, nope, no bail. You'd think there's a bit of a question here about that.
So guess what? Now a judge says Canada's use of the Emergencies Act to quell truckers' protests over COVID was unreasonable. Isn't that
unreasonable, unlawful, unconstitutional, and unnecessary?
So here's what the AP has to say about it. The act had allowed authorities to declare certain areas as no-go zones. It also allowed the police to freeze truckers' personal and corporate bank accounts, which is why you don't want to go to digital money. Because now the authorities can, as soon as they don't like what you're doing, as soon as you call out their criminality, they're going to freeze your bank accounts. Now you can't pay your bills. You can't travel. You can't buy gas for your car. You can't go to work. You can't pay your electric bill or your heating bill, or you can't buy groceries. So
no, they can basically block you out of life in general because everything is electronic now.
So it also so that emergency act allowed the police to freeze truckers' personal and corporate bank accounts and compel tow truck driver companies to haul away vehicles. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. What an ironic name, Freeland.
She's a family friend to Yaroslav Hunka, the honored Nazi. Because remember they had one Nazi flag that was probably not even one with the truckers.
No, I think that had been proven to be planted. That one swastika flag that they said was the truckers.
Yeah, then their House of Commons applauded a Nazi.
Then
not a year and a half later.
Well, it pays to remember too that Chrystia Freeland is the granddaughter of OG Ukrainian Nazis.
Yeah,
legitimate Nazis who fought on the side of Hitler. Let's just keep that in mind.
If you can't have actual Nazis from World War II leading your country, at least you can try to get their children and grandchildren to do it, right? So let's not be fussy about it, okay? People, we're trying to get the trains to run on time, okay? Or should I say the trucks to run on time? So daughter of the Nazis and Nazi saluter, Chrystia Freeland said the government's going to appeal that decision. She said it was a hard decision to invoke the act. Oh, really?
So Jimmy, it gets better. So that ruling that the Emergencies Act was illegal comes down. Freeland and a bunch of Trudeau's other underlings announced the appeal 17 minutes later. So the ruling was nearly 200 pages long. A 200-page ruling with all the reasoning, all the details, all the arguments, and somehow they read it and objected to it in 17 minutes.
Yeah.
So she said it was a hard decision to invoke the act, but called the protest a serious threat to public safety. Although nobody can point to anything that was a threat to public safety. All we can point to is the lies people like Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau and the media made up about the truckers, that they were actually violent, that they were some kind of white supremacists, that they were some kind of Nazis. The Nazis are Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau, because they literally saluted a Nazi in their parliament. We know this as a fact. Can you imagine if the truckers were saluting Nazis, what they would do to those people? So, by the way, Justin Trudeau then blamed Russian disinformation for the fact that everybody in Parliament saluted a Nazi.
I think of her as Rey from the Star Wars sequels. I know you didn't see it, Jimmy, and I'm sorry to spoil it for you, but she was Space Hitler's granddaughter, and she changes her name to Skywalker at the end, just like Freeland. It's like a nice protagonist name.
So someone from, I think it's called Rebel News, tried to question her about her appeal. You want to see what happened? Hold on to your, because this is ugly. Watch this.
Ms. Freeland, how come the IRGC is not a terrorist group? Why is your government supporting Islamo-Nazis? What? Excuse me. What are you doing? You're under arrest for assault. Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault. You're under arrest for assault. Police, you're under arrest for assault. How am I under arrest? You bumped into me. You pushed into me. I was just scrubbing. I got my credentials here. Wow. You just bumped into me. Can I have the microphone? Can I have the microphone? Can I have the microphone? Can you give? Wow, what a pig! Take your hand out. Why am I under arrest? I'm just doing my job. This is your Canada now, folks. You know, this is the Gestapo taking blackface's orders.
Wow, that's rough to see a punk ass Canadian cop do it too. Like, you bumped into me. Wow.
So we see Mr. Menzies being assaulted by Freeland's RCMP detail. Something, I don't know if you know this, Jimmy, or your listeners know this, but in 2019, Justin Trudeau gave a $600 million subsidy to Canada's private broadcasting sector, not the CBC, the CTV Global, the newspapers, all the supposedly private media outlets, because they were losing money. Because everybody knows the regime propagandists that lie to everyone, and this is even before COVID. They've received several top-ups through various programs since then, and it's estimated that Canada's fourth estate are now basically corporate welfare cases to the tune of over $700 million in subsidies directly from Trudeau. And this is why it takes people like me, who's basically a trucker with an opinion on the internet, to talk about a case of this level of import, or someone like Mr. Menzies to ask questions directly of Chrystia Freeland, who then gets assaulted by the cops. Because Canada no longer has an independent and free mainstream media. They are wards of the state and regime stenographers that repeat what they are told.
So let's watch this again. He's trying to question. What is her official position? She's the deputy,
the vice minister or something.
She's like the
deputy prime minister and finance minister.
And her name is Freeland. That's an ironic name for someone who sponsored the seizure of truckers' entire banking accounts.
Extremely.
But not for someone related to literal Nazis from the bullet Holocaust in Ukraine. I mean,
you can take the Freeland out of the Nazi, but you can't take the Nazi out of the Freeland. Am I right? So I want to play this again, and you can see the guy come up. The guy assaults the reporter. The guy comes up on the reporter, and then he's like, why are you hitting me?
Wow. I like how he was really alert and on point, but not enough, I guess, to dispose of the evidence of him being completely in the wrong.
Right.
That's a bright Canadian.
Freeland, how come the IRGC is not a terrorist group? Why is your government supporting Islamo-Nazis? What?
Did you see that guy? So that guy comes up, hey, why are you hitting me? That's what that cop just said.
Exactly.
On camera.
He even says, excuse me. Excuse me. The reporter.
What?
He comes up, he's got his arm out, he's hitting the reporter.
What a scumbag. And didn't even think to say, stop recording. Are they that stupid? They're clearly the ones who...
I don't see... That's not stupidity. That's hubris, right? Because he knows he's doing the bidding of Big Pharma. He's doing the bidding of the government and the establishment. And so there won't be a price to pay for this guy, just like there's not going to be a price for Justin Trudeau to pay for it illegally invoking that Emergency Powers Act and illegally doing what they did and lying. He lied about the truckers. And remember when he lied? Oh, I can't believe I don't have that video in this program today. But he lied and said he never called the truckers racist. And then, of course, there's a video of him doing just that, but he did it in French.
What they do? Oh, no. So, Jimmy, it gets better. So the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada also referred to the truckers in very disfavorable terms, insinuated that the protest in Ottawa was anarchy and that it had to be dealt with the full force of the state. This is the sitting Chief Justice of Canada's Supreme Court giving an opinion in his capacity as Chief Justice before any court cases come before him, basically repeating the opinions of the regime. And guess what? That Chief Justice who did that, also in a French language newspaper. Every time they want to talk smack about the rest of Canada, these lying turds go and do it in Quebec. because they think that like there's no such thing as translators, or like we won't find out. Like we're all stupid.
Yeah, they speak the version of French they speak is so primitive and moronic compared to French. They think no one could figure it out.
So if you could somehow harness the hatred for Justin Trudeau in Canada, I bet you could power half the country.
And
dude, we would eliminate the need for every solar panel and wind farm and the entire everywhere on planet Earth. Justin Trudeau was elected with, I think he only got low 30s% of like 57 or 58% of the eligible voting population who showed up in the last election. Like he's literally ruling with something less than 20% of the popular vote. Everybody outside of Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal hates his guts. It's just like he's a boy toy of the Laurentian elite who really run Canada, and the Liberal Party of Canada are the political arm of this Laurentian elite, and they're so disassociated from actual Canadians that they cannot see how much he is hated.
What's Laurentian elite?
I don't know. What is Laurentian elite?
It's like saying, it's like the elite. That Laurentian is the sort of term for an area in southern Quebec. That's where these people come from.
And it's not that coalition with that guy Jagmeet Singh and that Punjabi.
No. That's an of the times political coalition.
Oh.
And Jagmeet Singh is another criminal who has got way more power than he deserves, mostly because he's keeping Trudeau propped up. As soon as the Emergencies Act was like nullified and passed by in late February of 2022, the first thing Justin Trudeau did was approach Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP, and said, "Hey, what do you need? I'm going to help you. What you need to do for me, Jagmeet, is make sure that I don't get confidence motioned out of Parliament." Because one of the only democratic processes available in the parliamentary system to rid us of Trudeau immediately in the aftermath of the Freedom Convoy would be for, say, the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois or some other random members of Parliament to pass a confidence motion, which would trigger an election. Trudeau knew this and very cynically brought Singh and the NDP on board by offering them carte blanche to pass whatever legislation they wanted, as long as they agreed to defeat anything that came forward that would result in a confidence motion and Justin Trudeau's rule being threatened. So Jagmeet Singh is literally one of the most powerful leaders in the West, but without any actual democratic representation because he's holding Trudeau up.
Wait, can I just blow your mind? Have you considered that Jagmeet Singh is Justin Trudeau in his Arabian Nights outfit?
Possibly.
He might use your whole country.
So I don't know how Canada did it. You guys went from being the nicest place on earth to having psychotic fascist leaders pounce on you like cats in the tall grass. I mean, maybe it's because you guys are too nice.
It's because of decades of CBC propaganda and Canadians being navel-gazing lint analysts who've been taught to be insular and only ever think of things in terms of Canada, 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 while the CBC has taught them that you must hate the Americans because they are insular and only ever think about America. It's all projection and like extremely retarded psychology. That's what Canada has been raised through.
Well, don't a bunch of people that would, the people you really need that would stand up to this the most tend to move out of Canada to the States.
I don't live in Canada anymore. I left while I married an American. But I mean, this is it.
All the fighters move out, and then some of the worst ones from Canada take over at MSNBC for some reason.
That's right.
That Velshi.
Yeah.
David Frum is from Canada.
David Frum,
I want him deported. Yeah. I'll say that right here now.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Hey, here's some inside info. Did you guys know that David Frum's daughter died a few weeks ago?
No, didn't.
Oh, of course, because the media has kept that from you. David Frum's daughter died suddenly. perfectly healthy 32-year-old woman with no health problems.
I hope
And the media has done an incredible job bearing this. And I'm not going to dance on this poor woman's grave. But her father, David Frum, after being Mr. Axis of Evil, and we are going to, basically launch hell on earth care of the Bush Jr. administration, shifted to attacking anybody that objected to the COVID regime. He said the most insane things about people that objected to the vaccines, people that wanted to make their own health choices. He was on team vax everybody and scapegoat and outgroup anybody that dissented. And now his daughter is no longer with us.
Well, she should have got vaccinated.
I mean, no further comment.
Well, Gord, I really appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you. So, do you know what the fate is of the two last guys that are still in prison? So they let two guys out. They watered down they got rid of their BS charges, and they're basically giving them like trespassing charges or something like that, right? And what
they signed off on plea deals on lesser charges that were not part of the original heinous charges they were leveled at. And the point here is the legitimation of Trudeau's invocation of the Emergencies Act, per the inquest into it several months later, hinges on the only violence or the only threat of violence being these guys in Coutts in Alberta. And the government just admitted that there was nothing. They basically let two of the guys out. The other two are still in there. I'm not 100% sure why. The one fellow was in between lawyers, Tony Oleanick. Chris Carbert's still in there. I'm not 100% sure what the government's play on this is. But there's nothing to this case. There never has been. And there needs to be an inquest to find out. Because if you look at all of the details that what happened to these guys, and then situate it and contextualize it with the wider political situation, they have been railroaded. They had their freedom denied to them for 2 years. Their families were torn apart for 2 years to make Justin Trudeau look like he knew what he was doing.
So I always have this hope like, well, the Canadian people will wake up and make them pay a price for this.
No, they're not going to.
They'll move here.
And they're not going to, you say?
Many of them are a lost cause. They're CBC Canadians, and they've, as some of the kids online say, they've been paused.
They've been paused. Do you know what that is?
No.
So
POZZED. Anyway, yeah, I wish and I hope and I pray that people wake up to what's going on, that we have political prisoners in a modern Western nation state. But I am doubtful and skeptical that that's going to happen, knowing what I know about my fellow Canadians.
Well, that's the game. See, they've done the same thing here. We're going to cover this later in the show. That's the same thing they've done here. They took political protesters like on January 6th. And
exactly. That's the total analogy. That's completely true.
And they've turned them into felons, even though 80-90% of those people were completely nonviolent. Some of them were, but my theory is that they were provoked into being violent and breaking windows and going into the Capitol by the FBI plants in the crowd. So it's obvious that there were many FBI plants, provocateurs, and we've seen this. It's
always happened at every single thing that was a big protest.
That's right.
They always send someone to be an agent provocateur. That's a standard practice.
And so
the left should understand this, because there's a lot of leftoids in Canada who want to believe a maximally negative interpretation of the Freedom Convoy protesters in general and these guys at Coutts, and how short their memories are. I grew up when we had the Black Bloc showing up at WTO and IMF protests, the battle in Seattle, and all the smashing of windows and stuff was done by agents provocateurs. Why is it that we all of a sudden believe that there's no such thing as agents provocateurs or the government lying about the intent of the protesters? Come on, have some consistency, people.
So what's going to happen, which is exactly what's happening in the United States now, they criminalized Trump, they criminalized the January 6th protesters, and now they're criminalizing just regular protesters in Atlanta who are protesting the expansion of the police state in America called Stop Cop City. And so they're using the same statutes and the same grand juries that they used to indict Donald Trump to indict just poor little old protesters.
It's the practice of lawfare.
And you can't get anybody they're weaponizing the justice system to fulfill their political ends, which is, another form of terrorism. They're terrorizing our own country, and that's happening from the establishment. It's happening from the establishment in Canada, and so it's happening here too. And again, I try to get people to wake up to this. My former hero, Cornel West, I tried to point this out to him on the show, and he acted like he was dumber than a C student who went to state college, because for him to, it would take real integrity and it would take real courage for him, and he would have to pay a price for acknowledging that what they're doing to January 6th protesters, Trump, and they're doing to Stop Cop City is the same thing. And that if you have to stand up, even though you're not a Trump supporter, when they came for the Jews, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a Jew. When they came for the gypsies, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a gypsy. When they came for the trade unionists, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a trade unionist. And when they came for me, there was nobody left to say anything. And that's exactly the lesson that Cornel West and the whole left in Canada and America didn't learn. So if you can't stand up for the truckers' right to free speech and protest, and if you can't stand up for the nonviolent protester of January 6th, and you can't stand up then no one's going to be there to stand up for you. If you can't stand up for them weaponizing the justice system against Donald Trump, I'm not a fan of, but I'm smart enough to know that they're going to do the same thing to me if I oppose the establishment that they're doing to Trump, January 6th, Stop Cop City, the truckers, Bolsonaro, Imran Khan in Pakistan. That's the new global billionaire game, is to criminalize anybody who stands up against them. And and there's a price to pay for pointing that out. You won't get invited on MSNBC or CNN anymore. You won't get invited in polite liberal circles. You won't get book deals. You won't get speaking fees. I don't care about any of that shit. That's why I'm allowed to say that. Guys like Cornel West are afraid of that, so they won't say that.
Good for you. Good for you, and thank you, Jimmy. Same thing. I discussed this on Tucker Carlson. Laura Ingraham on Fox News asked me to ask about it. NPR was snooping around looking for a Freedom Convoy guy a couple of years ago. My name was suggested to them. They wouldn't talk to me because I wasn't going to tell them what they wanted to hear. There's a bifurcation in the media now between that which is approved and that which is not.
That's correct.
And they're not allowed to talk to each other.
And it's an international cabal. It comes from the WEF, which is also the WHO. By the way, the guy who runs the WHO, not even a doctor. He's a corrupt politician / terrorist.
He's a farmer
from Africa,
a rural white American.
So yeah. So anyway, Gord, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. Hey, keep us up to date on this. And so now they're appealing this. So is there any kind of timeline that you're aware of on their appeal of?
So the two remaining Coots men go back to pretrial hearings on, I think, March 18th or 20th. We're doing continuous fundraising for them because when Leviathan is coming after you, you need deep pockets. You can go to Give, Send, Go, Trudeau's political prisoners, and help out. But yes, it's ongoing, and there's many cases of lawfare. There's people who were picked up in Ottawa as part of the Freedom Convoy protest, charged with mischief or disobeying cops, had those charges acquitted, and now the Crown is appealing them. Regular working class people, like in America, you have this concept of double jeopardy. Apparently, we don't have it in Canada. People are having their cases appealed by the Crown. They've already been ruled to be innocent of any wrongdoing, but Trudeau won't let it go. They're vindictive SOBs, man.
You'd think a guy that did blackface that much would be a better guy.
You think so?
You think a guy that constantly does blackface wouldn't be such a prick.
So, Gord, what about this? Says the Emergency Act. So a judge finally somewhere is sane in Canada. So he says the Emergency Act was wrong, that they invoked it, and now they're appealing that. Do you know anything about that appeal?
So I'm not sure how much it's going to. How much influence is going to have on the existing charges, because most of the people that are facing charges still have their cases going through the court system were charged under the Criminal Code of Canada, which proves that the Emergencies Act wasn't necessary. Most of these people, almost none of these people were charged whilst the Emergencies Act was in place. They were charged with the Criminal Code. There was nothing the government didn't already have to be able to charge these people. The Emergencies Act was a fraud, top to bottom.
And so this is the game, and I've warned people about this, is when they got rid of habeas corpus in America. Barack Obama did that. And the point of that is so they can wipe out protests, right? Except the protests they wanted. They wanted Black Lives Matter protests because that created chaos in the country and it made people afraid to vote for Trump. And that's what that was about. But any other protests, has there been any more big protests in Canada since this?
No, of course not.
No.
This is the thing. The message was heard loud and clear.
This is how you criminalize protesters, and they've done it in America, and they do it under the guise of all good things good. We're fighting racism. We're defending democracy. That's exactly what every dictator says, and they're also censoring on top of it. So I'm sure the censorship's got to be off the hook in Canada, if what's happened here in America, right?
Bill C-11 and C-18 were passed last year. I wrote an article in Newsweek about these guys at Coots, and it came out just after C-18 was passed. People couldn't share it on Facebook because the piss fight that C-18 created between the social media platforms and the government. And just last week, they proposed legislation, this Online Harm Reduction or Online Hate Act, which has got one component that's basically not very arguable, trying to protect children from places like Pornhub and abusers online, and that's fine, but they never do this standalone. Another component to this act makes hate crime illegal, and it basically goes to thought crime. Under this legislation that Trudeau's trying to pass now, this Bill C-63, they can imprison you in your own home. They can put you under house arrest for things you have said online. If you are convicted under this new hate crime legislation, you can be put in prison for life for wrongthink. This is literal 1984 that Trudeau is trying to bring to Canada right now.
Well, we'll be in Canada, in Vancouver and
Watch
Edmonton.
your damn mouth when you're there.
When,
Yeah, you better.
I'm not. I'll see what happens.
Mask up.
Maybe we're going to get arrested. We'll see what happens. But before that, we'll be in Palm Springs this Saturday. So go to jimmydore.com. Gord, I really appreciate it. We have to move on. We have Max Blumenthal coming on. Gord, everybody check out his Substack. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. AutonomousTruckers.substack.com. Thank you so much, Jimmy. I really appreciate it. Free Canada.
Yes, free Canada. Hey, come see us live on tour in Los Angeles, Palm Springs, Stockholm, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Berlin, Copenhagen, Oslo, Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Cortland, New York, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, right outside Pittsburgh, El Paso, and San Antonio, Texas. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.